Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Kendra and this is Balanced Skein, where I talk about all the yarny things. Today we're going to talk about what I worked on in the month of September. I will forewarn you that it is a very short and sweet episode. I have no finished objects and only one new whip out of all of the whips that I have. So let's just get right into it. So the first whip I will talk about is my Pitch Coat by Emily Green. I can't remember exactly where I was. Actually, I'm pretty sure a month ago I had finished the back panel and I was working my way through the first front panel. I hadn't quite reached the pockets yet. Since that point, I finished both of the front panels. I blocked both the back and front panels, and I have knit one sleeve. The other panels are folded up upstairs, blocked and waiting for the next phase, so I don't feel like going up there to get them. But this is sleeve one, and this is my progress on sleeve two. So I am just about 15 rounds or rows away from starting the sleeve cap shaping. I know in the last video I said I would aim to have this sweater complete by the end of September. Today is Friday, September 29th, and it's not. I will say when I started this project, I had every intention on being done by October 14th or mid-October, and I'm very much on track to complete it maybe a week before that point. So I'm pretty confident that I will finish the second sleeve and block both of the sleeves this weekend, and that next weekend I'll do all of the seaming and I'll be done. So next month's video, if it's not too warm, I will be wearing this. Actually, it shouldn't be too warm because by then it'll be almost November. But yeah, that's the progress on the Pitch Coat. The yarn I'm using is Hudson & West Forge in the color Camel. This is the last cake of yarn, and I had 10 skeins in total. This is how much I have of the 9th skein, and this is number 10, which means I will likely have enough yarn left over to knit a hat. And we can continue with the matching knit sweaters with hats tradition that I seem to have established, which I think is a really fun way to use up leftover sweater yarn. Speaking of hats, the next whip I have is the 2x2 hat that I showed in last month's video as well. I haven't touched it all month. Pitch is knit on 4.5 millimeter needles, and so is the 2x2 hat. When I knit hats, the main section of the hat where you're like just doing the main section circumference, I use 16-inch circular needles, which for me means that I use my 4-inch needle tips. I have 2 full sets of ChiaoGoo interchangeables. So, I mean, it is what it is. And the 4-inch needles work perfectly for hats, because you pair that with an 8-inch cable and it's a nice, perfect 16-inch circumference that is ideal for hats and collars. Anything outside of those 2 types of items, I prefer to use my 5-inch needles. And that includes magic loop, which is how I'm knitting the crown of the hat. So I did maybe 4 rows this month and rounds this month, and I just decided that I just don't like knitting magic loop on the 4-inch needle. So once I finish knitting the Pitch Coat, I'll pop these needles onto that project and I'll knock out the rest of it. It will take maybe an hour, maybe two. So close to being done with that, but I'm not even gonna bother showing it because there's not much to show. And that brings me to the third and final whip, which is September sock. So for the first time all year, I have fallen behind on my 1 sock a month goal. I'm kind of bummed about it, but it is what it is, and I have every intention to catch up next month. But this was it was just bad luck for me. So for one, I didn't start this sock until September 10th. I had the plan of finishing up the 2x2 hat, but then eventually I realized I don't want to work on the 2x2 hat. And so I just went a little bit without doing any commute knitting. And then I decided, okay, I will just cast on September sock without finishing the 2x2 hat, which was not the initial plan, but I had to pivot, you got to make do what you have. So I cast on the size large. This pattern is the Cider House socks by Summerly Knits. And this is my first cabled sock. So I cast on the large, chugging along, finished the entire leg and started the heel flap. And then I tried it on for the first time and realized it was far too tight. Like it could get over my heel, but I had to yank it. And I just knew long term, it just wasn't the right thing. It wasn't the right fit. Like it wasn't gonna work. And I've already gifted away 1 pair of socks this year that I knit that turned out too small for me. And I really just felt like I needed a sock win. So I could have gone the route of just powering through, finishing the pair and gifting it to someone with smaller feet than me. But I decided to rip out that sock and start over with the size extra large. The thing is, the large size of this sock is like several stitches larger in circumference than my go-to vanilla sock stitch pattern. So I felt like those extra stitches would help me because from experience of making my Alma socks a few months ago, I knew that textured socks tend to have a tighter fabric, a tighter gauge for me, and I needed to counteract that by casting on more stitches. That pair was too small. I finished it and gifted it, but this pair I really wanted to keep for myself. Unfortunately, the texture in the Alma socks is not cables. It's a knit and purl texture and then a series of like twisted stitch texture, but not actual cables. And it turns out that cables draw in the fabric even more. So I needed to compensate even more, and I didn't realize that. I just thought the extra stitch count was gonna do the trick, and it didn't quite do the trick, unfortunately. So yeah, I had to frog that, and that was September 15th. I had to frog it and start over. And at that point, I could have switched gears and prioritized knitting on this as sort of my main whip in the interest of finishing it in the month of September and staying on track with my 1 sock a month challenge. But having to rip it out, it kind of hurt my feelings a bit, and I wasn't super eager to just put all of my knitting time into this project. So I frogged it and I kind of knit on it in the same cadence that I normally would, which is really just on my way to and from the office when I go in on average 3 times a week. And I didn't work on it outside of that. And had I worked on it outside of that, I could have totally finished this by now, but I'm just going with the flow. So the new plan is to have both socks of this pair done for October. The yarn I'm using is, I don't know. But it dawned on me recently that these colors are very reminiscent of the Hogwarts color. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, or if you're vaguely familiar with Harry Potter and the 4 houses of Hogwarts, then this may ring a bell for you. I already have Hufflepuff socks, so I'm happily welcoming these socks into my collection. And I don't know, maybe one day I will have all 4 house colors in hand knit socks. Since this video is lacking so much in actual knitting, although I've done a lot of knitting, I mean, to be fair, the pitch coat is a big project. This is a lot of knitting. I've done a lot of knitting, okay? And I've been working on this for a month and a half, and this has been my main whip. So just in terms of the number of projects and the lack of finished objects, I feel like I should give you a little bit more. So I'm gonna share with you the next project that I plan to cast on. Okay, so the next project I plan to make is a shawl, and it is called Almina, and it is by a designer named Lisa Hands. It's an Aran weight shawl, very big. It's really a half blanket size-wise. It's really a substantial size. And I'm going to be making this project to participate in the Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool Make-Along being hosted by Mia of Knit and Grace. And I'm really excited about that project, and I'm excited to finally use up the fisherman's wool that I impulse purchased a year and a half ago. I bought 2. I knit a pair of mittens with some of it, and the rest has just been burning a hole in my stash ever since. Not quite enough to make a sweater, and I wasn't interested in making a vest out of it because I'm not really interested in garments in that color. The color I have is Nature's Brown. And so this was a perfect opportunity to finally use up that yarn. I want to say I'm not a shawl person. I've knit one shawl, and it was more of a mini shawl. It was not big enough to really wrap around my neck. It was very Sophie scarf-esque in terms of size and wearability. And that was fun to knit. I had a single skein of fingering weight yarn, hand-dyed yarn, unplied. It was just a single. So, you know, there wasn't a lot of projects that it made sense to use a yarn like that in, and that was my way of using it. But I have not worn that shawl. It's not my color. It's not really a size that I think is very wearable. So being my only shawl knitting experience, I hesitate to say I'm not a shawl person with my whole chest. I feel like I need to give shawls as an accessory a fair try before I reach that conclusion. And I think this project is going to help me decide if I'm a shawl person or I'm not a shawl person. And even if I decide, you know what, shawls are not for me, I think this will be a really fun project regardless. And yeah, I'm looking forward to working on it. I'm excited. I kind of wish I wasn't jumping from one heavily cabled project to another cabled project, both of which are substantial in size. I wish I would have planned it out to maybe do a bit more of a palette cleanser project, but nevertheless, for the sake of participating in the knit along, I figured I would shift some things around and make this my next cast on. So that is all I have to share with you in this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.